And of course, the warm embrace between South African President Ramaphosa and Russian President Putin at the beginning of that summit has been analysed the world over. Let's bring in now Senior Research Fellow at Africa Asia Dialogues Afrasid, Thembisa Fakude. Thembisa, great to chat to you as always. Can you give us your thoughts on what he was saying there, that this has been a great success? And was it a success for South Africa that has been asserting its right to determine its own foreign policy, essentially?
Well, South Africa is caught in a much more complicated position because it had to go to Russia to compensate the disinvitation of the withdrawal of the invitation of Russia by South Africa indirectly, because South Africa will be hosting BRICS. So South Africa had to be seen to be playing a much more friendly role and constructive role in this conference, which, by the way, many people regarded it as a non-starter. It consisted only of 17 heads of state from Africa. The rest of the African continent basically did not attend this conference, which, by the way, to me at least, communicates a new posture of African leadership towards Russia.
It all looked very cordial, and there was that embrace in the beginning, which has received headlines around the world. But do you think behind closed doors, Ramaphosa would have been explaining perhaps why he agreed that government would arrest Putin if he came? And of course, there was the affidavit as well, where he said that he feared that Russia would declare war if South Africa arrested Putin.
Again, once again, a very confusing compromising position for South Africa, as is always the case. I mean, number one is that the previous or the first African peace mission, which was led by Cyril Ramaphosa, you had Vladimir Putin, who basically disrespected African leadership, who interrupted them while they were speaking. Number two is you have the same leader of Russia who went on to to cancel the grain deal or the fertilizer deal, which is certainly going to impact on African economies. But number two, went on to destroy the depository of the grain in Odessa in Ukraine. Now, this is troubling because Cyril Ramaphosa is seen by African leaders not only as a person who's going to be leading this peace mission, but also a person who went to ensure that there is going to be a continual flow of grain and fertilizer into African countries, and that didn't happen. Instead, you had Vladimir Putin who went on to make sure that this deal is totally destroyed by bombing the facilities in Odessa. Finally, I mean, while Cyril Ramaphosa was there hugging and welcomed by Vladimir Putin, you have Jacob Zuma, who's likely to become not too long a fugitive, who's currently sitting and hosted by the same president in Russia. So I don't know how it felt for President Cyril Ramaphosa to be getting that warm embrace.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a sign of success, as you point out, would be the restoration of the grain deal. Do you think that would have been discussed? Would Ramaphosa have thought it's another opportunity to push for that?
Well, that would have been, but what further added salt to the wound a couple of days ago was President Cyril Ramaphosa and other 17 heads of state, well, 16 heads of states were there. You have a coup in Niger, and the organization that's currently accused of having facilitated and helped the rebels in Niger to carry out that coup is the Wagner Group. And the Wagner Group we now know, after Vladimir Putin confessed, that they're actually totally controlled by Russia. So again, this is very confusing, and I think it's doublespeak from Russia. That you have all of these very negative geopolitical events happening at the same time, as you say, you have that hug or embrace, which has been celebrated, at least in South Africa, as indicating a positive relationship that President Ramaphosa and Vladimir Putin enjoy.
You mentioned that several African countries decided not to go. CNN ran a front landing page story yesterday is why South Africa putting its relationship with the US and the EU at risk. And of course, AGOA is also in the mix. So are you saying that South Africa when history is told, will be on the wrong side of this affair?
I think so, and we've got three at least, or four significant leaders that were absent who are currently seen as leading African continent towards a right direction. You have the Nigerians were not there, Rwandese were not there, the Kenyans were not there, and the DRC wasn't there. These are like really serious players in African politics. And I think South Africa is in a position where, one, they had to go to this conference because, as I said, they had to compensate for the for Vladimir Putin, who's going to be missing in the BRICS summit later the next month. So they had to go and, to an extent, reassure Vladimir Putin that all is well, and to kind of rekindle that relationship, which of course has since taken a dive following the withdrawal of an invitation by South Africa to Russia to come and attend the summit in August. So Cyril Ramaphosa found himself in a much more complicated position. As I've said, he had to go to the summit, notwithstanding that Russia withdrew from the grain deal. Russia is holding Jacob Zuma, and at the same time, he was amongst the 17 African leaders to go there, meaning that most of them decided not to go to Russia for various reasons, and one will argue that is because of the pressure that most of them have yielded or given into following American pressure.
And the hard part is the criticism is coming from both sides, because the EFF is saying that government sold out by not guaranteeing Putin's security. But we have to leave it there. Thank you, as always, Senior Research Fellow at Africa Asia Dialogues, Thembisa Fakude.